Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for taking time out of your days to come and listen to us today. And we're going to talk, obviously, about the benefits of having better technical documentation. But if we just transition to the next slide, please, we'll do a few introductions. So my name's Gavin Morgan. I am a business development executive in CAD-IT. I don't actually work a great deal on the technical publication side. I'm just assisting Dominic today. Dominic, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks for joining as well. I'm Dominic Santoro. I'm actually in the US and I'm on the pre-sales engineering team. So I'll be covering the technical publication suite in a little bit more detail.
Thanks, Dominic. So yeah, if we transition to the next one. So you can see today's agenda. I'm going to give you a short overview of CAD-IT as an organization and what we're about. And then I'm going to hand over to Dominic, who's going to give you the real technical detail today. And you can see the topics he's going to cover over the next sort of 30 minutes. Please feel free to drop any questions you have into the chat function, and we can pick those up at the end. Okay. So who are CAD-IT? For those people, excuse me, for those people who haven't heard of us or maybe have heard and don't know a great deal about us, well, we're a technology provider primarily, looking at Industry 4.0 solutions across a full product life cycle, be that design, manufacture, service, operate, etc. So we're a privately held company, headquartered out of Singapore. I think the information on the slide is probably a little bit out of date now in terms of some of the numbers, but we're certainly above 600, probably near the 700 mark now globally. And as I said, headquartered out of Singapore, but we've got offices around the globe and strong presence in Asia, of course, with the HQ being in Singapore, reaching into Australia as well. But when you head in a westerly direction, we've got offices through Europe. We've just established a new presence in Germany, and we've got the UK office, obviously, and we've got a presence in North America as well. Won many international awards for the services we provide. And as I've already mentioned, we're specialists in Industry 4 solutions across product life cycles. Thank you. Morning. So we partner up with different solution providers, and you can see some of the logos on the screen here. But it's fair to say that our biggest partnership is with Siemens, and you probably know they're an industry giant. But in terms of some of their software products that we can sell on behalf of Siemens, but more importantly, provide the services, the consultation, the training around implementing those into a business. That is where we specialize, and Siemens do come to us to assist them very, very often, particularly around service lifecycle management. So technical publications drops into that bucket, but also in IoT, so the Industrial Internet of Things. We are very strong at that and one of Siemens' preferred partners. And just to mention really that we cover many sectors across industry that you can see on the screen. It's fair to say that aerospace and automotive do tend to dominate, but that's not to say that that's the only sectors we work in. We do cover right across, industrial equipment, medical, agriculture, etc. Electric and autonomous is obviously growing, and it's a big sector for growth at the moment, and we're getting more and more into that as that grows as well. Okay, I think this is the last slide from me. So this slide just tries to encompass our total sort of solution and service offering, and it tends to fall into three buckets. So first one, service lifecycle management. This is where the focus is today around technical publications. But it's not just about the publications and the service procedure itself. It's about how that's managed, how the content is created, how it is linked to engineering definition, and you'll hear much more about this from Dominic as we go through the rest of the webinar. The industrial Internet of Things, this is my area of the business that I focus on, and this is something that we've been doing for a number of years, certainly in Asia, but over recent times we've been spreading this offering through a different solution in this part of the world. So that part of the business is very much growing at a fast rate for us at the moment. And then lastly, I'll just mention augmented reality. So this is a way of accessing content, really. That's simply it. It is various options for viewing data, and that could be CAD data, and you can talk about virtual reality, augmented reality, full immersive experiences, etc. And we can implement and consult on all those types of AR solutions. And I think at that point I hand over to Dominic. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Gavin. So again, thanks for the introduction. Now we're going to really focus in on technical documentation and of course the solution. But just to kind of preface the whole demonstration, technical documentation, we're talking about anything that is going to be referring to the usage, repair, or maintenance of a product. So of course, this documentation is developed by the engineers, by the manufacturer, and the goal is of course to use this documentation both internally and of course externally to kind of increase the efficiency of servicing or of kind of overall understanding of the product. And what's really important to note as well is that this documentation has to exist for the entire lifespan of the product. So when we're talking about technical documentation, we're talking catalogs, different types of manuals, maintenance manuals, operations, training, as well as work instructions. So we'll be focusing on a few today, but technical documentation kind of in general, referring to all of the paperwork or digital pieces of work that contributes to the understanding of the product. So some of the challenges that are really starting to emerge with technical documentation are that from a high level, customers are requiring more value. So we have product life increasing in length, we have the amount of variance increasing in count, and then we have higher expectations and experience coming from the product from the customer side. And then on the internal business side of things, from a high level, we need time to decrease, time to market to decrease, and complexity is increasing, and then of course cost, as these other factors increase, cost is generally going to increase as well. So trying to keep costs down, production costs down as low as possible. So this kind of conflicting balance between the more margin as well as more value, creating a real challenge. So specifically, these demands are really increasing the need for technical documentation. So this rising complexity in terms of how we're viewing technical documentation, there's different formats, different languages, different styles of media, of course, mobile, video, as Gavin mentioned, VR. There's a lot of new mediums to view the documentation, as well as I mentioned in the last slide, but to go into some more detail, increasing variance, so having more types of the same product, different product changes. So we're having shorter product cycles. So think between revision A, revision B, maybe more realistically, you have 1.01, 1.02. They're throwing that extra 0 in there because they know there's going to be so many changes and updates, which is a great thing for the product, but it needs to be managed correctly with the proper technical documentation. So this is the current kind of challenge that's ongoing, and we like to say that the rising complexity needs to be met before in time, before the product kind of outlives the technical documentation. So looking at current technical documentation processes, so of course, hopefully manufacturers of course have a plan they already are doing technical documentation to some degree. This might include more of a standard text editor, or maybe Illustrator in combination with the text editor. And so more of a standalone, not connected to any of the actual data. So you have a manual process between researching, authoring, reviewing, translating, and then publishing the data. But looking at the process, really wondering if it's efficient enough, if it's best in class. And we're going to go through in the next few slides in the demo our solution, which is reusing the data, building a process that's going to be more efficient and robust enough to handle changes. So you're seeing the colored charts with content management as well as with reuse of the data, bringing the time for research, authoring, reviewing, translating, and publishing down, bringing the effort down and the time down in order to complete those tasks, as well as overall cost, given less manpower and less time spent on the projects. So this is more of a detailed view on common limitations between a disconnected technical documentation system. So here we have, we're looking on the left. So with the engineering data, we have some modules, of course, with components, CAD data, other property data, and then on the right, we have our technical documentation. So here we're seeing kind of all of the elements that make up the engineering and the documentation, but they're disconnected. So you're having to frequently rewrite information. You're not able to access the engineering data directly from the technical documentation. It's just a kind of a snapshot of the engineering data. So it's not, there's no visibility into the live changes. So it could be very out of date. And then again, as those changes are made in engineering, there's a manual reentry of data in the technical documentation side. So all those procedures, all the illustrations, bill of materials, those are all disconnected from the engineering data. And to solve this, to improve this technical documentation flow, we have the solution that is going to reuse all of this component and module data from the engineering structure. And so bringing that data in a unique way into the TechPub space, you're allowed to reuse the data. So we're reusing the direct CAD data, which increases the precision and synchronizes the entire process. So we're going from the data to our specific technical publications. So diving into some of the areas of TechPubs that we're going to cover, part catalogs, we have maintenance manuals, training manuals, and then we have some other solutions that build off of the tools, so work instructions and different types of manuals, as well as training applications. So we're looking at our Rapid Author tool, can be broken down into several subtools. So this entire suite of technical publications, the entire suite being Rapid Author, can be broken down into, which we'll cover first, is Rapid Catalog. So each tool is very similar in background and similar in its use, intuitive use, but it's focused on what the output is going to be. So working with Rapid Catalog, the goal is going to be to create interactive illustrated parts catalogs. So we have the ability to generate not only 2D images with parts lists, but also 3D navigation with context, with parts lists. Go through this process, you can also add existing images, so real world images from the actual component being serviced, or something that's, maybe very different in reality, something that might be covered in grease, or something that's going to look different than the 3D model. You could include real images built into the illustrations. And again, we're using the CAD data and we're using the BOM data from the engineering. And as you'll see in a moment, this is going to reduce errors, lower the cost to create the actual catalog, as we're reusing as much data as possible. And it's going to increase aftermarket revenue. We're going to have precise data. We're bringing in the descriptions, the part numbers, the quantities. Everything is correct and precise from the model. So you have very little error. So when either the customer is using this from the customer point of view, the external point of view, or if it's internally, you're able to have very, very high precision. So Again, we don't have too much time. I'm going to actually jump into the Rapid Catalog software tool just to show how easy and interactive the parts catalogs are to make. So I'll jump over to the other screen. And so, again, I'll just spend a few minutes behind the scenes and demonstrating the capability of Rapid Catalog. But what you're seeing is a small assembly that was brought into the solution. As this CAD information is brought into the Rapid Catalog or any of the Rapid Author tools, the data is lightened. It's lightened and it's secured, so it's in a generic format, so you don't have to worry about in the actual publications the CAD data being measured or being extracted in any type of way. So it adds that level of security, but it also adds that level of quickness to the process. So I talked about the data getting lightened. You could see as I toggle through some of the pages for the catalog, it's very quick. You'll see with the movement as well as with some of the motion that I do, that even the largest of assemblies is a very, very lightened version of the CAD data. So jumping right into a preview, we're going to kind of cover what an output would look like, and then we'll maybe show just quickly a simple change in how we would get there. But this is going to look a little bit different from the conventional catalog. Of course, you can export this format in a standard PDF, which would look very conventional with all of your wireframe and all of your annotated images side by side, your parts catalogs. But what I'm showing right now is the HTML output. So we have various outputs that we can do. And this one is really focused on interaction and efficiency. And so looking at the top level, we have our sub-assemblies broken up into the actual catalog. And as I change the sheet, you'll see, of course, not only the visual change with a specific view being demonstrated, but also the catalog adjusts to be shown what is in that view. From here on any page, you can toggle to that 2D view. So we still at the core have the 2D image illustration with the parts catalog, so kind of the snapshot here, but also we have that interactive, we have the ability to select on components and highlight them and synonymously both between the parts catalog and the visual sheet, as well as being able to make things transparent, hide some of the components, really manipulate the model a little bit to have a better understanding. As we dive deeper into different sheets, you'll see that the perspective is maintained. So it's not just snapping from one page to another. You're seeing a good transition from one view to the next, giving you really good context. I'll just jump back and forth really quick again to show, giving you really good context of what you're looking at next. So this is, again, very different from flipping a page and having a kind of a completely different view to your component. And as we dive deeper, you'll see each step of the way it has that context of where it is. So specifically this one, this view, kind of jumping back to that first view we saw, you're seeing a very quick adjustment. And then lastly, we have the ability to manipulate the table, checking on or off components, and then the ability to see the full table if we wanted to see the full table. But just given the sake of time, really, really quick, just to show the lightweight and the efficiency of the tool. Going through and creating a new sheet is extremely fast. So we can create a new sheet here. We can select an existing view and we can duplicate that view, or you can start kind of from the top level. So I'll duplicate the top level. Go ahead and rename this. We can rename this demo just to keep track of it. And I'll go in and into this view. We can set our viewpoint to a specific angle. So I'll set this viewpoint more of a left focused view. I'll actually remove some of the components, and we can then see in real time the 2D preview of the wireframe output. And from here, we can toggle on our callouts. We can maybe edit the location of those callouts, make some adjustments to the coloring, the shading, and then we can go ahead and save this this page independently, as well as the image that you saw. And then I can reload the output and just show reusing the large BOM, trimming it down to only what was needed for that page, adding just a few pieces of illustration, and then having that view start from the left, kind of a face focused view, but also having the ability to pan and rotate to investigate the component, as well as, again, having that standard connection between the two. So just a really easy process. Then you have the flexibility from here to choose if you want to go kind of deeper into components and dive deeper into pages, or more have more of a traditional top level view with views stemming down from the main page. So you can kind of have the flexibility to go through, which is a little bit different than the conventional authoring, where you're just covering every view specifically. This one you can focus on diving deeper into certain aspects of the component and then pulling back to the top level and then diving deeper into other areas of the component. And then lastly, just want to mention the flexibility you have with adding rows or columns. If for some reason you don't have the actual part list, if you want to add a new line item, you can very easily do that, and create your own item, as well as associate it to a specific part number. So that's just a very quick introduction to Rapid Catalog. Next, we're going to talk about Rapid Manual. So very similar background, same process of bringing in the CAD data. We have the goal of Rapid Manual to be creating technical manuals, of course, but also operating procedures, work instructions. And Rapid Manual will also serve as the foundation for some augmented reality outputs, as well as some training platforms down the road. And what Rapid Manual does is create animated outputs. So it creates a 3D storyline that is going to go through and create that interactive storyline to show the manual. It's going to concurrently build the two-dimensional manual, the text manual, side by side, and associate it with the 3D manual. So essentially you'll have interactive steps where you can click on the step and have an illustration, a quick demonstration of what that step is doing in real time. The benefits of Rapid Manual, again, reusing the CAD data, bringing this specific information in, it's going to cut costs massively. You can also start this process, as it's typically a large bottleneck with technical publications. You can start the Rapid Manual process concurrently with your engineering. So if you're working on it, you're able to start the storyline and then have the information be updated into the storyline. This is going to speed the time to market. And then also with some of the hard stop points you can put into the manual, which you'll see shortly, you can achieve compliance and safety requirements. So maybe hard stops saying which equipment you need to use, hard stops that are letting you know which power systems need to be disconnected, which prerequisites you need to have even before you begin the actual maintenance. Going through this can give you that meet all the safety requirements, as well as the learning platform, which we'll cover in a little bit. So I'll go ahead and jump to a quick session of Rapid Manual. All right, so as I mentioned, a very similar interface, but a different goal. So here we have our procedure, start to finish, doing a simple kind of removal of some of the components on this assembly. So I'll go and play that output first, similar to how I showed the catalog output first. But what you'll see is a storyline, a 3D storyline on the right, with full control over which components are being removed, which tools are being used to remove the components, the viewpoints in which you're viewing the component on. This is all flexible, what you're seeing on the right. And then on the left is the manual, the actual 2D manual with some real world images, as well as the steps being connected to the visual steps on the right. So you're removing tools. I mean, the information on the left is what would be containing all the information about specific values in terms of bolt tightening. Not to say you can't include that information in the visual as well, as you're seeing some instruction in the illustration, but also making sure that information is on the manual to meet all the requirements, the technical requirements, as well as just the success of having a proper maintenance procedure. So we're seeing just a few more seconds left on this clip. Again, you're seeing each of the steps go through, they're connected, but as you build them, so here we have a hard stop, making sure the bolts are tightened to a specific value. Not only are they called out in the illustration, but they're also called out in the 2D manual. And then we're just seeing a few other changes, and I could scroll up and down the procedure and view the entire procedure on the left. As I click on a specific component, as I click on a specific piece of the procedure, it will jump to that part in the, right now it looks like a streamlined video, but as I said, it is essentially broken up chunks all put together. From the background, just to give you a quick look on all the types of actions you'd be able to complete, we have a variety of different actions that can be combined. So you have all kinds of inspections, installations, removals, opening and closing. It's well prepared for all the types of mechanical movement, as well as prepared with the object gallery if you want to bring in specific types of components or your own tools. If you want to bring in your own CAD geometry for tools as well, you can do that as well. So it's again a very quick introduction to Rapid Manual. And then lastly, I just wanted to touch very quickly on the goals and values of Rapid Learning. But this is going to build off of Rapid Manual. So you have that interactive 3D learning environment. So you'll be able to put hard stops with questions and gather information based on who's taking the test. So you can have that those compliances, the LMS and SCORM compliances, so that you can record who is going through the manuals and learning experiences, make sure that you can add audio and add existing documentation. So you can kind of take Rapid Manuals output and then you bring it into Rapid Learning and add a few, a few more settings and values to get your learning environment. This is going to greatly accelerate training timelines because you're reusing the data that you already had to do for Rapid Manual. You're going to cut costs because you're reusing not only the CAD data, but also the information from Rapid Manual, and you're going to improve safety, retention, job performance, a lot of values in terms of getting someone who has not seen the component yet, not seen the assembly yet, up to speed as quick as possible. Make sure they know all of the hazards, all of the areas of danger, and then as well get them up to speed so that when they are in front of the actual component or assembly, they're much more familiar with it. So just quickly in summary, Rapid Author, we went through some of the suite tools, but it's a single tool that's going to cover all of the authoring needs. No CAD experience is required, although that's where the information comes from. Working in the authoring tool is very intuitive. You're going to be able to attach all kinds of legacy documentation, so you're not going to be wasting anything you've done before. And then this is going to lead to, again, a huge reduction in time, a large increase in revenue opportunity, given the precision of this documentation, and then compliance and safety, as well as other documentation needs, requirements can be met through the Rapid Author tool. So now we have a few minutes left. I just want to open up the floor to any questions that we might have, and we can go through and answer them. So I guess I'm expecting questions maybe in the chat. Robin, are there any, or I'm sorry, Gavin, are there any questions?
Sorry, Dominic, I was on mute. Yes, we've had a few come through. So let's look at those. First one, if I need to change a version of a procedure, how easy is it to change? This one came in quite early, so I think you've been quite good at demonstrating that, but if you want to just comment on that, Dominic.
Yeah, so as we showed looking at the engineering data inside the Rapid Author tools, we're making changes, we're making sheets, right? We're making steps, whether we're in the manual or whether we're in the catalog. We have the ability to make changes, and as the CAD data is brought in, you'll go through a quick change wizard, which essentially it will look for what has changed and keep as much as it can. So if you make a small change, if you swap out one piece of hardware or a group of hardware for a slightly different type of hardware, it will understand and it will keep everything else that you've done to the tech bubs. And not only will it identify you what has changed if you weren't aware, but it will let you quickly swap out the action. So the actions and all the pages that you saw in catalog and manual, those are all a very modular. So you can quickly swap out, the movement to use the new type of component. As for larger changes, that there's always a decision for revision or not, but you'll be able to reuse as much data as possible, moving from change to change.
Okay, thanks, Dominic. Another one here about adding new tools. How can I add a new tool if it's not currently included?
Yep, so I think typically right up front, you would spend some time, as you saw the object gallery had some default tools. Of course, you'll probably go above and beyond that, but I think right in the beginning, you would spend some time importing those tools, and so then you'll have them to use for every upfront for every authoring piece that you want to do.
Okay, so we've got a question here about training as well. How long does it take to train someone in the authoring procedure?
That's a good question. So from firsthand experience, of course, this depends on how long someone's been authoring for, because the better you know where you're headed in the authoring tool, the faster you'll get up to speed. But it's a matter of weeks. I mean, there's no CAD experience required. You're able to manipulate the engineering data with simple X, Y, and Z movements, with simple rotational movements, as well as very intuitive actions, hiding, showing, removing, setting your viewpoint is very intuitive. So although it is a 3D space, again, no CAD experience required, and the output is really, it's really broken down nicely into the text, the catalog, and then the actual interactive part. So it keeps them relatively separate. So just a few weeks to get up to speed, and then of course you'll get faster and faster, probably just like any software, months after that.
Okay, great, thank you. Another one here about, I'll read it word for word. Will it take my current team of authors away from their current roles?
I think that it's going to be, a huge jump in efficiency in terms of not redoing a lot of work. So when you have a change, instead of having to go through and manually swap out all those illustrations, you're still going to have the same viewpoint, and so you'll be able to just go quickly update all of those illustrations. So reasons like that, it'll be more efficient. You'll save time. I don't necessarily know if you won't need the manpower anymore. I don't think that's for us to say, but it'll definitely be some, a more efficient process, which will definitely save time from the authors. And so I think that will allow them to get ahead of maybe a little bit more, but I don't think it will necessarily reduce right away. But again, time saved, so take that how you will.
Yeah. Last one, Dominic. How much quicker is authoring compared to my legacy procedure, Word, Photoshop, etc.?
Yeah. So depending on the complexity, you'll really see some advantages. I mean, you saw how quickly I was able to create a catalog and how easily it just fit right into the project I was already working on, that page that I created. And so it's going to be significantly faster. It's going to be, and every time you make a change to engineering or want to make a change to the authoring, it's going to save time. So if it's a very long project with a lot of different parts and you want to have 20 plus pages in your illustration, the time reduction is going to be incredible. If you're creating a one-page illustration, it's going to be fast and efficient, but you'll really see the advantages when you have a reasonably complex component. Even the assembly you saw was 40 to 50 pieces and individual components, and there's a huge, compared to grabbing screenshots manually and manually annotating them, as you saw, creating an illustration in real time, adding information real time. You saw me publishing the preview, which is very similar to the output. The output is of course a little bit higher detail and a little bit more complete of a package, but going from start to finish could be a matter of just an hour or two.
Okay. And that is all the questions we've had in. So thank you everybody for sending those in. Hope that you found the webinar useful. Please get in touch if you do have any more questions or you want to find out a little bit more about the tool set or the application of it and methodology we might use to implement this in a business. Any more information at all, please do get in touch. But on that note, we'll end the webinar and thank you very much for attending.